Over 50 people came out to the Friendship Center to remember their missing loved ones. The Sisters in Spirit Vigil is a very emotional affair where it's not only about remembrance, but awareness. Aboriginal women are one of the most victimized population groups in Canada. Connie Greyeyes is one of the organizers of the Fort St. John Vigil and feels it is important to do it here because of the missing women in the area.
We started the vigil about 5 years ago, and it's organized across Canada to honor and remember the missing and murdered women across Canada, the Aboriginal women. There's over 582 documented cases of missing or murdered Aboriginal women, and we have several from this community. So we felt it was really important to start up this vigil so that the families of the missing and murdered women from this community have a chance to get their story out and for some support from the community.
Greyeyes' biggest motivating factor in organizing the walk is because she personally knows women who are missing and one who was murdered in horrific fashion.
One of the reasons that I did start this was that I have several friends that are missing right now. I personally knew Ramona Schuler and Shirley Clefgirl and Sandra Kellahazen and Stacey Rogers, Renee Gunning. You know, those were people that I knew, and I also had a family member that was murdered in Edmonton, and she was doused with gasoline by a complete stranger and lit on fire, and died 22 days later. And you know, just so senseless.
Despite the monstrous nature of the murder, it was several years before Greyeyes and her family saw justice.
You know, it wasn't until quite a few years later that they actually found who did it, and she's the reason that I'm here. Her name was Joyce Cardinal, and you know, she was loved, and that was, you know, nobody deserves that, to have that happen. And that's, you know, part of the reason that we're here is to raise awareness that it's not okay to hurt our women any longer. That we're going to stand up and we're going to raise our voices and we're going to say no, enough's enough. Start caring about what happens to our women. Start changing the system. And, you know, once we do that, then maybe once we start getting the word out there about these women that are missing, that maybe we can, you know, start changing the attitudes and stigma attached to Aboriginal people.
Greyeyes says it is very important to keep the talks about missing women going because it can potentially help lead to them being found.
You know, the families of the missing and murdered women from this community have expressed such gratitude for being able to come here and share their story and really feel like somebody cares. You know, quite often when their loved one went missing, they had a sense of feeling that, you know, it wasn't really a big deal, you know, that their loved one was missing. You know, she's probably drinking, partying, whatever, right? And I think that this gives them that opportunity to share their story again, keep it out there and keep it out in the media, like, you know, with yourself coming down here and reporting on this, that it just gets that out there again. That, you know what, these women are loved and they're missing, and we want to know what's happened to them.
Greyeyes is one of the several women who is walking for a missing loved one. Darlene Schuler's daughter is the reason she is walking. Her daughter Mona went missing 10 years ago while heading to a birthday party.
I'm walking for my own daughter. She's been missing for over 10 years, and we don't know where she is. And we've had the cops work for us, but they haven't got no tips on anything the last 3 months. So we're just hoping that the awareness and the support of all this happening here tonight, we hope that it'll bring up more tips.
Schuler says the most important thing someone can do if a loved one goes missing is to let people know as soon as possible.
It's very good that people think of one another and love one another as sister and brothers, and we hope to see that anyone else goes missing to report it as soon as possible. Don't leave it wander, because it's very hard on the family members.
Schuler believes this event can act as a wake-up call that Aboriginal issues need to be addressed.
Well, I think with this all happening and the programs keep going on, I think that there'll be a lot of people that would look down more often and see what's going on and how much support that the Native and Aboriginal people are doing.
Greyeyes isn't the only woman who took part in the walk in remembrance of someone who was murdered. Kim Chapezi took part in remembrance of her cousins.
To acknowledge my cousins that were murdered. They're Aboriginal women. They're from the Blueberry. And one was murdered in Chowan and one was murdered in Prince George. So I'm here to acknowledge them. That's Cynthia Mays and Annie Absasi.
Chapezi says this event is important because of the lack of recognition that crimes against Aboriginal women receives.
I don't know, I think an event like this is awesome because
Aboriginal women ain't acknowledged anywhere, pretty much. You don't hear anything about Aboriginal women. And I think an event like this should be like worldwide. And like in every community, even on the reserves, it should happen.
Currently, there are 582 missing Aboriginal women across Canada. Grey says that it is essential that their families share their stories, as it is important to the healing process.
It is so hugely important for us to get the word out there now more than ever, because it seems to have been a history in Canada that it's okay to hurt our people. And you know, our healing journey starts with getting our stories out there, and you know, being able to express the pain and the grief that we're all feeling over our loved ones and over the past is important to be able to move forward. So it's really important for these families to come out and say, you know what, like, this happened to my loved one, and I need people to care about it, because you know they need that. They need to feel that their loved one was important.
The vigil may be over, but for many of these families, the search still continues. For Around the Peace, I'm David Baxter, Fort St. John.